Right. So, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New
Good
Year.
to see so many of you back. So today I thought I'd start a sort of kind of beginner's oil course. So I know this isn't going to be relevant to lots of people who've been painting for years and years, but hopefully it'll be useful for anybody who's fancies trying oils or starting out with oils. Over the next few weeks I'll talk more about the materials and the different bits of equipment and things like that. But I thought I'd just talk about the different kinds of oil paint to start with today, and then start a fairly sort of simple still life. This is probably too complicated actually. Simplify it a little bit. Some sort of simple still life demo. Or if you wanted to use landscape or some other subject, that'd be fine. But all I'd suggest is just keep it fairly simple. Don't make it too complicated. Might be quite nice to maybe do a couple of paintings, small simple paintings for the project rather than one long involved one. So the different kinds of oil paint. I've been painting with oils. I think I got my first set about 50 years ago, just like a little starter set when I was a child, which was nice. And the ones I had then were Winsor & Newton, and they're still very good paints, Winsor & Newton. And I've actually got, so that's a Winsor & Newton one. So Winsor & Newton Winton are like a traditional student quality paint. So they're a nice paint to work with. You can also get equipment, Dale Rowney do the Georgian ones, so they're the most popular makes. And they're a good sort of student quality paint. You can get more expensive paints, so you can get the artist quality paints. And with the artist quality paints, they vary in price. So some pigments are very expensive, so the tube's a lot more expensive. So you're spending maybe upwards of, well, they might start at £6 or £7 or £8, and then they'll go up to over £20 sort of for those ones. So mine are quite a mixture. I tend to use a lot of student quality paints, particularly from bigger work, and then sometimes I use the better quality now and then. I've been doing that a little bit over the last few years. I use a lot of Jackson's paints, Jackson's artist ones they call, but these are their equivalent of the student range. So they're quite nice, and they're quite affordable. They're quite a nice sort of, nice paint and nice and affordable. So today I'll just use a bit of that. I'm going to use just a bit of blue and a bit of brown today. So what I'll be doing is underpainting. The other kind of oils you can get are the water mixable oils. So I've got those. So that's what I normally use, which are these ones. And mine, if you want to use some of these, you're very welcome. They're a bit, mine are getting a bit old, and they're a little bit stiff in the tubes. So I found with these ones, I started using these when I started teaching, sort of probably 15, 20 years ago. I'd never really used them before then, and noticed some of the students had these, so I thought I'd try these out. The big advantage of these is you haven't got the smell of solvents, plus they're a bit quicker to wash up with brushes, so that's the main advantage. I think they're fairly similar, the handling. They're perhaps not quite as fluid as the traditional oils, but they're not too different, particularly when you've got new tubes, they're not too different. They dry slightly differently. I find that they dry a little bit sticky and a little bit tacky. They seem to take a long time to harden off. So I find it's best not to have them painting sort of like on a shelf, leaning against each other with these ones. Whereas the traditional oils seem to just harden off a bit quicker. But there's not masses of differences, and I'm quite happy to use either really. I mostly use the traditional ones because I paint outside most of the time, and they're better if it rains. They're not going to get washed off. So that's just a little bit about the paints themselves. And then I've got solvent here. This one I've got here is it's a low odour solvent. I think these cost me about 12 quid, something like that. I get very headachy with some solvents, so I've had to go with all the low odour ones. So, and what I do is I will use this, wash the brushes, thin the paint, and then I'll recycle that at the end. So I've basically got a big jam jar at home, and I'll just tip it in there, and then the paint sort of settles, and you're left with something that's slightly yellowy, but it's clearer. It's usable.
So do you have to use that solvent all the time on your brushes when you use oil paints, or can you use water? That might be
Well, these ones are traditional oils, so I have to use solvent.
Right.
Yeah. With your ones, you don't need
solvent
solvent at all. So
right,
that stage is cut out. Just use water. Much easier. I mean, it is much easier because like places like this, they've always got water. You can always get rid of it. Whereas, and that's why I tend to use those ones for teaching. Whereas these ones, I've always got to carry solvent around with me. I've got to then recycle it, and it's just more of a job really. But I think on balance, I probably do prefer these. So yeah, I thought I'd use simple still life. I mean, I normally paint on a tone board, so normally I'll show you a tone board. But I thought most people will start out with a white canvas or white oil painting paper or something like that. And I'll talk a little bit about the surfaces a bit more next week. But I just thought, just because this is the sort of surface most people are going to have, I'll use a bit of this today. So this is just a bit of canvas. I've got a roll of canvas at home, so I'll just cut a bit off. I just want to tone the... So I'm just going to mix some brown to start with, and just tone the whole board. So this is, for me, this is far too white. You could, draw it out and then fill some tone in, but I'm just going to try and thin this down and just paint over this. Now this this comes ready primed, and I've never tried actually using the primer before, so I don't know if it's any good or not. I bought this roll because I do a lot of demos for art clubs, or I used to do. I bought this roll of canvas just to do my demos with, really. But I've pretty much always toned the canvas already with some acrylic gesso or some acrylic primer. But this is another way you could work. So you just put some, sort of tone the background, and then I'm going to wipe that back, just so I'm not working into a very wet surface. So I can just kind of work that in. So that should be quite a nice surface to work on, because the paint will sort of glide across there, but I'm not going to be hitting too much sort of paint up. What I thought I'd show you today is really underpainting. These are a couple of examples of, well, this one actually does use brown and white, so this was just white still life object. And then you could then perhaps do another layer of paint over that with some colour, if there was any colour. And then the others are all portrait ones. So this one I was just trying, that was one I did from life, just trying this underpainting from life. That one's from the photograph. And this is, just another one I did from life. So I just did that as a quick demo in class once. And I think that's when I realised that one really literally took about 10 or 15 minutes. And it just made me realise you can sometimes get a nice result just in a few minutes. Really. Yeah. But I mean, I think up until then, I'd laboured for hours and hours and hours over every painting. So sometimes it's quite surprising. Sometimes the demos come out better than...
Just with your brush?
Yeah, just with the brush. Yeah, he was one of the life models we used to have when we used to teach life drawing and portrait drawing. But that could be underpainting, and then that could dry, and then you could go over that with some colour.
Because oils take a long time to dry, don't they? Generally.
Yeah, generally. So what I'm suggesting today is use brown and blue, because they're the quickest drying. So oils dry at different rates, so you'll find that the brown, certainly the ultramarine blue and say something like an umber will dry quite quickly. If you start adding white and yellow and red to it, that slows it down. So if you're doing an underpainting, this is a really nice way to build up a painting, because you can work quite slowly. Perhaps just stick with those and just keep it quite transparent to start with. So if I was going to sketch out my not particularly well arranged still life, bit random, and I'll use a rag as well. So I'm sort of doing this. So I'll start off with a little bit of line. So this is the squash. And this is, you know, it's a reasonably big brush, but you could use a smaller brush if you want to and get thin lines. And then I can see a little bit of beetroot here, and then there's another. Let's start with that one. One of the beetroots there. And as I say, you could use a simple landscape if you want to, but just sort of don't overcomplicate it really. I think things like these sort of subjects, they're not too, you know, they're rounded forms, so you've got a chance to concentrate on getting light and dark shape without too many details. And then we've got another one just in here. And then really all the stalks, I'm not going to draw every one in, and then there's a few leaves here. And then I think the squash wants to come up a bit bigger actually. So the nice thing is I can hopefully wipe that. Yeah, I can wipe some of that back. It's easy to adjust. Whereas if I've got a pencil, you know, it's hard pencil lines. If you wanted to use pencil, you could do it very lightly. I do find that the if you're using solvent, it melts the pencil a little bit once you put the paint on. But I don't tend to use pencil because I find this just as easy really. It's just easier to adjust.
I remember thinking when I first tried this that it gets you in a more like freeing state of mind, whereas if you start with a pencil, then each layer feels a bit looser and easier.
Yeah. I find I'm happier working, starting off loose and then just sharpening things up than I am making it too precise. It doesn't always work with all subjects, but something like this is fairly easy. So that's that could be the still life bit. I guess that's the advantage on working something like this, is I can adjust the composition as I go. And then from there, I can then, you know, if I wanted lighten areas, I can just get, if I wanted a very dry bit, I can just go straight back to the canvas almost and just wipe bits out with the rag. I'll go in a little bit darker though, and just darken some of these areas. So again, just use a little bit of either brown or brown and blue. But if you mix the brown and the blue together, you'll get something quite dark and black looking. So these really dark shadows in here. Like that. The stalks and the leaves. So that would be a leaf. There's a little bit of shadow there on the side of the squash. And then we've got shadows underneath. I've gotten this one out. Not looking very careful.
I wasn't counting.
Yeah. We can work some. So it's sort of putting the colour on and maybe just wiping some bit in a bit. I'm using my fingers. I want to keep the squash slightly lighter. And that'll be shadow. And with these sort of things, it's good to kind of squint, just really half close your eyes. And that was the other thing I wanted to try and encourage, is a little bit of working from life this year. Yeah, we do lots of work from photos, but I pretty much did it. I did an awful lot of my sort of college stuff was observing the world, and that's very much what I still do. I still really enjoy looking at things more directly than.
A lot of your what stuff, sorry?
Well, when I was at college, I did a lot of work from observation. Yeah, I did some from photos, but it's a really good foundation to work from direct observation.
Is that a special rag at all?
No.
I just wondered if you could use any material.
This was once one of my t-shirts.
Well, I cleared out a kitchen drawer and I got about 20 tea towels and things.
Yeah, they
like
do
that
great.
I could use.
Yeah, anything. I find like soft cottony ones are nice. Very synthetic, doesn't absorb the paint very easily.
Right, I wondered if a a certain material would.
Yeah,
affect the
yeah, I
paint.
do find cotton works nice.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
it's very good cotton.
Can you use tissue roll just as well, or is that better?
You can do, but it's probably going to break up a bit.
Oh,
Yeah, you can do it.
okay.
I tend to use the tissue more for just wiping, cleaning brushes and scraping bits of paint off. It probably, yeah, it'd be right. Yeah, that might be okay. Yeah. There's probably some more shadows in the background behind here, but hopefully that's enough to. It's not very, very well constructed background, but hopefully that'd be enough to kind of get it started. So the idea is this would, this could dry. Then next session you could work up. Mary's into it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm just saying we've plenty of rags at home, we can always use them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think keep.
Just pick up the husband and walk him.
Yeah, I think again it's probably one of those sort of painting outdoor things. Tissue tends to dissolve in the rain, so I find the rags are just a bit harder.
Oh, yeah, you always have your outdoor thing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Is that right? Enough to get you going? Yep.
Yeah, I fancy a good go of something from